making my way up the mile, and I could just hear him go to hell, Jesus, go to hell, Jesus. Looked over, Matt's going, go to hell, Jesus. And you could see people like, no, ripping up the leaflet. Like, I went, you do realise what you stood in front of? The massive church cathedral.
Yeah.
Hi guys, welcome back to Interval Conversations. I'm so glad to be joined today by my good friend from university, Mr. Matthew Galloway. I think he's this side. Time of recording, it's weird. But Matthew, how are you doing?
Hi Nathan, I'm all right. I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, it's all right over here in Hull. How's things with you?
Good. It's chucking it down as usual in Halifax. Nice sunny Halifax. So, oh yeah. So for the people who don't know us really, me and Matthew went to the University of Hull together in the same year group, and I think most of the time we were just trying to one-up each other on one-liners and jokes, or in the pub. That's pretty much how we spent our time.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment. Yeah.
But, Matt, how did you actually first get involved in this wonderful industry?
Professionally or just ever?
General?
Like,
yeah, in general.
I don't know. I think I started. I got into. Well, I think my first role was in the pantomime. You know, in reception or year one, and I remember going up to the teacher and asking if I could have a bigger role than narrator. And in the same day, the guy playing Joseph didn't want to be Joseph. He wanted to be a narrator, so they just swapped us. And that was that. From there, it was just, you know, look at me, look at me, look at me, me. But no, I think I always enjoyed it. I never really liked any sport. I tried everything under the sun. My mum and dad would, you know, they would buy me the equipment. I remember one day going to this cricket match dressed in full gear. I had the pads, everything. It was the first time I'd ever worn it, and got bowled out immediately and just walked back. I spent more time walking there and back than I actually did trying to hit the ball. But that was me. I wasn't any good at sports. I wasn't really interested. But drama was it was a hobby at first. It was something I enjoyed doing. And I think as you get a bit older, you make that decision whether you want to keep that as a hobby or if you want to try and make something out of it. And I'm currently trying to do the latter, but here we are in 2020, and yeah, it's going flying ahead. Spielberg on the phone. Don't worry about it.
So before university, you actually went to National Youth Theatre as well, didn't you?
I did.
You got the experience of that. So could you tell us about that?
I can. NYT is great for a number of reasons. And it sounds corny, but the best part about it is it brings people together. I was worried going into it. And I remember speaking to one of my housemates when I was there, who'd also gotten into it. I was worried it would be a lot of people who were raised to be actors, if that makes sense, who'd perhaps come from a different sort of mentality and background than me. I don't know why I was so worried about this. Maybe it's just my own insecurities. I thought it would be a bit more pretentious than I was or I wanted it to be. But I remember going there, and it was such an eclectic and diverse mix of people. You know, there was people from all around the country speaking in different accents and different tones, and we all just came together and made stuff. And you know, that's the best part about it. You know, it really, if you haven't had that experience before, it really opens your world a little bit. But I remember in the audition, it seemed very evident that that's what they were going for. they impressed upon us that they wanted people who knew how to work as a team and wanted to build each other up. You know, there was that element of competition there when we were in it, but it was never cutthroat. It was never cliquey. It was always, let's work laterally. Let's make something together. It's good. It was a very welcoming and fun experience. And it sounds like an advert for it, but I really couldn't recommend it higher.
Link below.
Yeah.
So how did it actually come?
No,
How did it actually come about?
Go on. Well, it was a friend of mine who told me to audition for it. I wasn't going to do it, and she told me to audition for it, and I was still a bit, I don't know if I should. And then my mum basically told me if I didn't, I was an idiot. So I said, yeah, you know what, you're right. So I went to the audition, and I didn't quite know what to pick as my piece. And I'd been told that I shouldn't go for something like Shakespeare, you know, or Beckett, or something that's really well known and really overdone. I should pick something stupid. So I did, and I went with a monologue called my William Shatner Man Crush. No, I didn't. Sorry, that was something else. I went with something called Killing Chuck, and it was this piece about me accidentally or purposefully, depending on which way you believe it, pushing Chuck off a roof at a party because I'd gotten in a row with him. And that was really cool. And what's cool about the audition process is they ask you to come in, do it, and then they say, right, do it, you know, like you're at a bar, or as a pirate, or like you're in space running away from aliens. And it tests your ability to just try and switch it up. So that was really cool.
So moving on a couple of years, we eventually ended up meeting at university. So do you have any highlights from university? You were involved in a lot of productions at the uni.
So were you. I think we both got quite a lot out of uni, you know. Highlights, bloody hell. I think when I wasn't hungover, it was all a highlight, you know. I think the parts I remember most, not specifically about the course, but I think the parts I remember most were the house parties and walking back from Welly at 2:58 a.m. and chatting to some randomer and then just parting ways, just stuff like that. But I think about the course itself, because that's probably why you got me on here rather than that guy I walked back with. Yeah, I'd have to say the plays. I thought, right, I'm going to throw myself into this, and I was really lucky enough to be, you know, I was fortunate enough to be cast in some of those plays, in whatever way that was, whether it was acting or whether they asked me to direct something, or whether I just tried my hand at something new. But that's what that experience was for me. That's what I wanted it to be going in. I could just try different things and expand my knowledge and get better at what I really wanted to do, which was act, and you know, bits and bobs like that.
Yeah.
What about yourself? What do you say?
Yeah, because I was thinking about this the other day, because I think I only did 3 shows on stage in the entire time. I did You're in Town, Our Country's Good, and Panto when it originally wrote it. Oh no, 4, because we did Edinburgh Fringe as well. And,
oh yeah, I should have mentioned that. That was a hell of a highlight.
One of my highlights from that is something that happened with your show. So I've mentioned this on another episode of the podcast in season 1, but because we had to flyer on the mile, and your show had an interesting name, so it's Go to Hell Jesus, for those who don't know. And
it was Go to Hell Jesus. 1 star by the Scots.
Obviously we space ourselves out on the mile just so we can get more audience with a leaflet. But I was making my way up the mile, and I could just hear him go, "Go to hell, Jesus! Go to hell, Jesus!" Looked over, Matt's going, "Go to hell, Jesus!" And you could see people like, no, ripping up the leaflet. Like, I went, "You do realise what you stood in front of? The massive church cathedral."
Yeah, yeah. It
was just a joint.
That wasn't intentional, by the way. That honestly wasn't intentional. Like, there's no way we made that show to be some sort of provocative statement on organized religion. It was just a meme. That's all it was. We didn't mean to stand out in front of there. We could have been stood out in front of a coffee shop for all we knew. But yeah, we looked up and you know, there's the church, there's the steeple, open the doors, and lots of angry people looking at us. Good times, man.
Yeah, Edinburgh Fringe, I loved. It was very chaotic, very chaotic. Yeah. I was just shattered by then. Obviously, the show I was in, like, all the girls were dressed as oldies. I was in drag, right? And it was like.
And may I say, you looked fabulous. So.
Oh, don't stop, don't.
Stop it.
Flattery will get you everywhere. Now, but yeah, so I was in drag, and it was a farcical comedy, so a lot of throwing each other around. I was just dead by the end of it. I was glad to see the end of that show in the nicest way, Katie, and the rest of the cast. But I was glad to see the end of that show. So, did you feel like that with your show as well? Because obviously you were on stage a lot during that. Obviously playing Jesus.
Yeah. I think no more than any show really. It wasn't necessarily the show that exhausted me. I can't speak for the rest of the cast really, but yeah, it was just the fact that we did it a lot, and there was a lot of moving around, and you know, early mornings, late nights. Whenever we went doing the show, we would be flyering or drinking or out and about trying to see other theatres and other shows. So yeah, I think that was the exhausting part. So it wasn't necessarily happy to say goodbye to the show. It was more of a, okay, right, Edinburgh, done it, smashed it. Yeah. Let's go home now. That's more what it was. But yeah, I totally understand. And you yourself, you know, with a very physical role, yeah, I can imagine how the show itself would have tired you out. Me, on the other hand, I just stood around and was sarcastic. That was essentially me. So I was fine. I was all right.
You do that all the time anyway.
I know. I just walked on stage and said the lines. That's all it was.
Another highlight from that same year as well with your show is when we all climbed Arthur's Seat. Got to talk, and we did a Sermon on the Mount sort of photo of you.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah.
I'll insert that photo now. There we go.
Where is it? I'll edit it. I want to react to it.
I'll edit it in. So go.
Oh, a picture. There it is. That's my reaction. But we are cutting this out, right? All of this is going, yeah?
Oh no, this is staying in.
Marvellous. Great, yeah.
But just doing that and seeing all the random tourists looking at us like, what are they doing? It's just an army of teenagers in jumpers, bright blue jumpers.
They 100%. They thought we were a cult, 100%, easily.
What is this said?
We've made it to the top of Arthur's Seat, and now we're doing some weird Sermon on the Mount. Yeah.
It's good advertising for the show, though.
I guess it was, yeah.
But moving on from Edinburgh Fringe, otherwise we'll be here all day. Was it second or third year? I believe it was third year, wasn't it? You got involved with John Godber Theatre Company, and you went on tour.
Yeah, that's right, third year.
Yeah. So would you like to tell us about that entire experience? How did it come about?
Yeah, sure. It came about because someone associated with the show sent me a message on Facebook just saying that John was looking for actors to be in his upcoming show, Seasons in the Sun. And I jumped at the opportunity, went for the audition, got the part, and then it was a case of navigating uni work around a professional show right at the end of the final year. And it was an eye-opening experience. It was something I'd not been used to before. I'd not been used to that kind of hard slog before. Doing show after show after show and trying to maintain everything that you're working to achieve. Whether that's emotionally on stage, even though you've done it a million times, or trying to keep it fresh and new, but at the same time remembering exactly where you need to be and what you need to do with a changing audience each night. Yeah, it was challenging. I've been acting for a while, I suppose, but that was a different beast entirely.
Yeah,
and it was, I felt very, very lucky to be part of the experience.
You were on stage quite a lot of the time with our good friend Jake Marsden. So what was it like acting alongside him?
Just a pain, if I'm honest. Just constant. Yeah, no, it was great. It was really good. Jake's a very, very, very special performer. He's considerate and he's thoughtful, and when things go wrong, he does his absolute best not to laugh on stage. Yeah. There was definitely a couple of fluff ups with us too. I'd like to say not many, but that's my own ego getting in the way maybe. But Jake was brilliant because he'd already worked with John and that company. Yeah. And he knew the ins and outs of it and what was expected. I was completely new to it. And even on days when I was trying my best and doing everything I thought I was supposed to be doing, it didn't always go well for me. I didn't do everything right. I had to learn to try things a different way. And Jake would be there to just contextualize it a little bit and sum it up and say, look, just try it like this, or look at it in that way. Yeah. And that was helpful to have someone who'd been in my shoes as the new guy in a company that's got a big reputation and a lot of history there, and who all know each other, and just help me through figuring out how to not just fit in, but try and really, really make something of that part. So yeah, it was a pleasure to work with Jake, not just because he was professional and effective and reassuring, but because he's a mate, and it was nice to be able to unwind a little bit sometimes. So yeah. But apart from that, just a complete struggle. Wouldn't do it again. Wouldn't recommend him.
No,
at all.
You did a little tour of that show as well. So was it Beverley it started in? Then you went to Wakefield.
That's right. So the play itself was set in Wakefield, in a bin depot. It was essentially about two lads that had just got out of their A-levels, and they were waiting to see if they got the university marks that, the A-level marks that would get them into university or not. I was playing an artist, Jake was playing an actor. And it was set in, like I say, in a bin depot in Wakefield. And when we did it in Beverley, I think we did about 24, 25 shows in the space of a month. Which was quite a lot for me, at least, having not really done anything like that before. And so in Beverley it was fantastic, and then in Wakefield it was also fantastic, but it was a different beast entirely. The audience would join in, and you just had to go with that. And the thing was as well, because it was about Wakey, the audience were from Wakey, and they knew all of the, you know, there was some people there who were around, literally around physically for the events of the piece. And the locations in the piece as well. They'd call you out on it if you got something wrong. You know, we had to change a line one night because someone had told us that it wasn't quite accurate. Well, you know, it wasn't far off or anything, but it just needed a bit of tweaking. So we changed it last minute, and I completely forgot it and made a massive fluff up on stage. Ended up adding a swear word that wasn't meant to be there. It all went great. I'm very professional, and that was a good laugh. But yeah, Wakefield was a different experience altogether. You could feel it in the room. You'd walk in there and it was that cracking energy. Yeah, and we took it on tour there. I got insanely drunk on the final night, and then came back home. Yeah, so I had a wonderful time in Wakefield. Gorgeous theatre as well. You know, it was a Frank Matcham theatre, and it was all just lovely.
Oh. So speaking of fluff, I'm going to add this question. What are your onstage mishaps been like throughout the years? Any mishaps like those?
Oh God. Yeah, there's definitely been a few. I remember doing this wasn't with an audience, but it was still hilarious. There was this show I did called Adrian Mole back in the day, which just for anyone who was in Adrian Mole who's maybe watching this, still one of the best plays I've ever been in. I miss it, and I miss you all. But we did this dress rehearsal where we hadn't rehearsed this scene yet because it was the understudy day. Sorry, it was the dress rehearsal for the understudy performance. Not the understudy, it's the matinee performance, sorry. And some of the actors would swap around, so we had the understudies for some of the parts swapping around. So I would then do like a chorus role. And there's one scene where Adrian Mole, who's the main character, is stood in the middle, and he's talking about all the chores he has to do. And for each chore, someone runs on and hands him an item. You know, cleaning the house, they give him a Hoover, and then washing the car, someone comes on, takes the Hoover and gives him a sponge and a bucket. You know, things like that. And I'd not rehearsed this. I'd been told what to do, but I hadn't done it yet. So on the line, clean the cat, I ran on and gave him a cabbage and just looked him dead in the eye and then just ran off again. So that was great. Maybe not the biggest or the worst, but I'll never forget that, giving someone a cabbage. Just a sentence I never thought I'd say. There was this one-man show I did in second year called Mr. Incredible, and with Jake, actually, he was the director.
I lit it.
And we did that. What's that, sorry?
I
oh
lit
yeah,
it.
you listed, of course you did.
Yeah.
That's the thing with only one person on stage. There's no one to help them out if things go wrong. They've got to figure it out for themselves. So yeah, there was on the first night, I forgot what the hell I was talking about. And I just grabbed the phone and started chatting to Netflix, talking about a subscription that needs to be cancelled. Completely made it up on the spot. And then the other night, I completely and utterly forgot my lines. 100% just wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. So I just flat out told the audience I needed the loo, walked off stage, and the stage manager, Liv, just sort of calmed me down, told me to wait a minute and go back on. But you know, things just happen on stage, and I can't remember any particularly funny ones right now. I can remember stories that other people have told me, but you know, yeah.
So recently, you've started releasing your own poems. So would you like to tell us about your inspirations for those, your writing style? How did this come about?
Yeah, of course. I've released two. First one I released was called Bangs and Whistles, which I wrote during lockdown. And the other one is called Funny Guy. I wrote Funny Guy about 4.5 years ago. And I'd sort of woken up in the middle of the night. That's how both of these came about. I'd woken up in the middle of the night, just feeling anxious and weird and strange, like I needed to do something, but I didn't know what, like go on a run. But I've never ran in my life, so I decided that probably wasn't the best decision. So I just jumped on the computer and started writing. And I found out that there were a lot of things I needed to talk about, get off my chest. And it just became this piece. It was a bit of a blur, really. I did it in about 3 or 4 hours, put it together, and there it was. And I kept it mostly quiet because I've never been a fan of, well, I kept it to myself, mostly because it was quite personal. You know, it's quite a therapeutic thing. And I didn't just want to shout it from the rooftops or anything. Well, at least that's how I thought about it at the time. And then a few people were like, you know, you should upload this. You should see what people think and get some feedback, and, you know, improve on your work. So I did. And then I didn't really write anything else like that at all. And then a few years later, I wrote Bangs and Whistles, and that deals with other things completely. And thought, yeah, I'm going to release that as well and see how that goes. But inspirations and writing styles, I'm not sure. I'm not really a poet, if that makes sense. I wouldn't be able to relate it to anything. But there's bits of it that are quite fast and quite, you know, is polysyllabic a word? I don't know, but it's got lots of syllables in it. And they also match up and rhyme together. So, you know, I'm a big fan of Eminem and, you know, Tech Nine, Busta Rhymes, these incredibly difficult, fast rappers. And I suppose I try and emulate that to the best of my own ability. But, you know, yeah, so I'd probably say that. But yeah, I've released 2, and hopefully I'll do some more in the future. But if I keep writing it at the current rate that I'm doing of 1 every 4 years, then I don't think I'm going to make much of a career out of it. So I'm just going to stick to my day job for now. But for what it's worth, it's a lot of fun.
Good to hear. So I just have one last question for you. What advice do you have for future theatre makers when it's safe to go back?
Don't be a dick to anyone. I think that's a really, really important piece of advice. I think it's an important piece of advice for life in general, and every profession under the sun. But theatre is such a close-knit community. You could be the most talented person in the world, but if you're not very fun to work with, or you make things difficult, or people don't feel comfortable being able to express themselves around you or work alongside you, then, you know, you might not get hired. People talk, people discuss each other. You know, it's the same as references for any other job. So that's the first thing I'd say there. But also, I think it's really important to try and take every opportunity you can, no matter what it might be. I remember talking to a friend of mine a while back who was playing a nasty character, and the things that character believed in and what they were talking about, they were incredibly uncomfortable with, because it affected them in their real life. You know, they were a type of person that the person that they were playing hated or thought was scum. And they were originally gonna, it wasn't a professional piece or anything, this was in uni, they were originally gonna refuse that role. And, you know, I just said, you know, I think it's important to try and push yourself, and, you know, try and, it's just acting at the end of the day. So that I said that to them now, and I still believe it now. And yeah, just go for it and try and expand your breadth a little bit. That's probably what I'd say. I mean, I've not gone far, to be honest. I've only done a couple of professional things, and, you know, that's just how it works. And I'm not the best person to maybe be giving advice on how to make it in theatre. I'm still waiting to do that myself. But I think just from what I've seen over the years doing amateur stuff is just try to get on with people. That's the number one thing. Even if you know that you're a terrible person, right? Even if you know that you're awful, at least try for your own sake. It's a pragmatic thing.
Don't be a dick.
No, just don't be a dick. Be kind to each other and give everything a go.
Oh, Matt, that is some brilliant advice. So thank you so much for taking time out and doing this interview. It's been lovely catching up with you again.
You too, although it's been pretty one-sided. I assume you're all right.
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, I'm coping. Bit quizzed out,
Good.
But so many quizzes.
It's just too many.
Yeah, way too many. So yeah, Matt, thank you for joining, and thank you guys for tuning in to another episode.